The hidden legacy. The conference room smelled of leather and old money. Emma sat in the corner chair, the one furthest from the mahogany table where her parents and sister Sophia occupied the premium seats. She'd learned long ago to make herself small in rooms like this. Outside, rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows of Whitman and Associates, the law firm that had served her family for 3 generations. Emma watched the droplets race downward, wondering which would reach the bottom first. It seemed more interesting than whatever theatrics were about to unfold. "Shall we begin?" Martin Jacobson, the family attorney, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and opened a leather portfolio. He'd aged since Emma last saw him at her grandfather's funeral 6 months ago. New lines creased his forehead, and his hands trembled slightly as he arranged the documents. Sophia crossed her legs, her Louboutin heels clicking against the chair leg. At 28, 2 years older than Emma, she embodied everything their parents valued: ambition wrapped in designer labels, charm deployed like a weapon, and an unwavering certainty that the world owed her its best. Their mother, Margaret Whitman Reed, sat rigid with perfect posture, her silver hair styled in a severe bob that matched her severe disposition. Their father, David Reed, checked his Rolex for the 3rd time in as many minutes. Time was money, and he resented every second spent on sentiment. "The last will and testament of Dr. Thomas Whitman," Martin began, his voice formal and measured. "Written in sound mind on March 15th of this year." Emma's chest tightened. March. That was 2 months before Grandpa Tom died. 2 months before the cancer finally won. She'd visited him that week, brought him the chocolate-covered strawberries he loved, even though they made her mother purse her lips in disapproval. "To my daughter Margaret and her husband David, I leave my estate in Martha's Vineyard, the art collection housed therein, and the sum of $2 million. Margaret's expression didn't change, but Emma noticed her mother's fingers tighten on her clutch. $2 million was nothing to sneer at, but for a man of Thomas Whitman's wealth, it was almost insulting. "To my granddaughter Sophia Reed, I leave the sum of $10 million to be managed by trustees until her 30th birthday, at which point she will gain full control of the principal." Sophia gasped, then laughed, a bright, crystalline sound that filled the room. "Oh my God! Grandpa Tom, you absolute legend!" She turned to Emma with false sympathy. "Don't worry, Emma Bear. I'm sure you'll get something nice too." Emma's stomach knotted. Sophia only used that nickname when she was about to twist the knife. Martin cleared his throat. "And to my granddaughter, Emma Rose Whitman Reed." Here it comes, Emma thought. The antique brooch, maybe a few $1,000s. Enough to be technically included, but not enough to matter. "I leave the entirety of my private laboratory facility located at 1847 Ashwood Lane, including all equipment, research materials, intellectual property, and associated funds for operational expenses, currently totaling approximately $800,000. Silence crashed into the room like a physical force. What laboratory? Margaret's voice could have frozen fire. Martin consulted his notes. Dr. Whitman maintained a private research facility in Ashwood Heights. According to these documents, it's been operational for approximately 30 years. The property is wholly owned, no mortgage, and includes a residence on the upper floor. "That's impossible," David said flatly. "We would have known." "I'm afraid the documentation is quite thorough, Mr. Reed. The facility has been carefully maintained, and all expenses paid through a separate trust." Martin pulled out another envelope, this one cream-colored and sealed with red wax. Dr. Whitman left specific instructions that this letter be delivered to Emma personally. He was quite insistent it be read privately. He slid it across the table. Emma's name was written on the front in her grandfather's distinctive slanted script. The letters formed with the same steady hand that had taught her to write in cursive when she was 7. Sophia laughed again, but this time it sounded sharp. "A lab? What's Emma going to do with a lab? She dropped out of college." "I took a leave of absence." Emma said quietly, her first words since entering the room. There's a difference. Oh, honey, is that what we're calling it now? Sophia's smile was poison wrapped in sugar. Mother, father, surely there's been a mistake. Emma doesn't know anything about running a research facility. She couldn't even handle a basic biology degree. That's enough, Sophia, Margaret said, but her gaze fixed on Emma with something between confusion and suspicion. Emma, what did you and your grandfather discuss during your visits? Books, Emma said, which was true. Life. His research sometimes. What research? I don't know. He didn't share specifics. Also true. Grandpa Tom had talked around his work, describing problems and theories, but never revealing the full picture. She'd assumed he was just keeping his mind sharp, reminiscing about his glory days. This is unacceptable, David said, standing abruptly. Martin, we'll contest this. Thomas clearly wasn't in his right mind. The cancer, the medications. Mr. Reed, I must advise against that course of action. Martin's voice carried a steel Emma had never heard before. Dr. Whitman had his cognitive function formally evaluated by 3 independent physicians, specifically to prevent such challenges. He was, by all medical and legal standards, completely competent. Moreover, he included a clause stating that any attempt to contest Emma's inheritance would result in all other bequests being redirected to charity. David's face flushed purple. Margaret's lips disappeared into a thin line. Sophia stared at Emma like she'd never seen her before. What did you do? Did you manipulate him? Tell him sob stories about how mean we all are to you. Emma stood, clutching the letter. I loved him. That's what I did. I visited him. I listened to him. I didn't check my phone every 5 minutes or schedule him in between hair appointments. How dare you? Sophia started. We're done here, Margaret announced, rising smoothly. David, Sophia, we're leaving. Emma, I suggest you think very carefully about what you do next. That property represents a significant tax burden. You have no income, no career, no prospects. You'll be bankrupt within a year trying to maintain it. Maybe, Emma said softly, but it'll be my bankruptcy, my choice, my life. She walked out before they could respond, the letter burning against her palm like a Part 2. The Laboratory. Ashwood Heights sat on the northern edge of the city, an older neighborhood of converted warehouses and art studios that the real estate boom hadn't quite reached. Emma's rideshare pulled up to 1847, just as the sun was setting, painting the brick building in shades of amber and rust. It was larger than she'd expected. 3 stories with tall industrial windows and a discreet entrance marked only by a number. The building had good bones, as her grandfather would have said. Strong, built to last. Martin had provided her with keys and a security code. The lock clicked open smoothly, well-maintained despite decades of use. Inside, motion sensor lights flickered on, revealing a small vestibule with a modern security panel and a staircase leading up. But straight ahead, through a heavy steel door, was where Emma needed to go, the laboratory. She pushed through into a vast open space that took her breath away. The main floor was divided into clear sections, benches with microscopes and equipment she recognized from her abandoned studies. A climate-controlled storage area with glass walls, a computing station with multiple monitors, and a library that stretched along the entire western wall. Everything was clean, organized, and clearly still operational. The air filtration system hummed quietly. Equipment lights blinked green. This wasn't some abandoned relic. This was an active, functioning laboratory. Emma moved through the space in a daze, her fingers trailing along the workbenches. Labels marked everything in her grandfather's meticulous handwriting. Cell culture, batch 47, protein synthesis, series Q, archive samples, 2018-2024. On the main desk, beneath the monitors, sat a leather journal and another envelope. This one had "Read me first" written across it in capital letters. Emma sat down in the ergonomic chair, still adjusted to exactly her height, she noticed, and opened the envelope with shaking hands. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then I've moved on to whatever comes next. And you're standing in the place I loved most in this world besides the moments I spent with you. I imagine you're confused, possibly angry that I kept this secret. Your mother certainly will be. But I need you to understand something before we go any further. This laboratory, this research, this legacy, it was always meant for you. You are my granddaughter in every way that matters, but you are not connected to me by blood. You are adopted. Your parents never told you this truth, and they swore me to secrecy when they brought you home 26 years ago. Emma stopped reading. The words blurred as her vision tunneled. Adopted. Not connected by blood. 26 years of lies. Her hands trembled so violently she had to set the letter down. She stood, paced to the window, forced herself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The breathing exercises her college therapist had taught her before she'd stopped going to sessions, stopped going to classes, stopped pretending she could function in a family that made her feel like a ghost. Adopted. It explained everything. The distance. The disappointment. The way Sophia always got first choice, first consideration, first love. Emma wasn't being paranoid or oversensitive. She literally wasn't one of them. After several minutes, she returned to the letter. I wish I could say they kept this secret to protect you, but that would be a kindness neither of us can afford. They kept it because you were a solution to a problem. Your mother couldn't have another child after Sophia. Complications during birth left her unable to conceive. Your father was desperate for an heir, in case Sophia proved unsuitable for business. His words, not mine. They adopted you privately through channels that ensured secrecy. You were 3 days old. Beautiful. Perfect. And from the moment I held you, you were my granddaughter, completely and truly. But your parents never bonded with you the way they should have. You were insurance, a backup plan. And as Sophia grew into exactly what they wanted, you became increasingly invisible to them. I watched it happen, and it broke my heart. I argued with them constantly about telling you the truth. I believed you deserved to know your story. They refused, claiming it would only hurt you and create unnecessary complications. Margaret was adamant that if you knew, you'd become difficult, as if wanting to know your own origins is somehow unreasonable. So I built this place. I continued my research, and I waited. The journal on this desk contains everything. Your adoption records, the names of your biological parents, both deceased, I'm sorry to say, medical history, genetic information, and the research I've been conducting for the last 10 years. You see, Emma, your biological mother died of a rare genetic disorder when you were 2. Your biological father died in an accident a year later. I managed to obtain some of their genetic material and medical records through old professional contacts. What I discovered was extraordinary. Your mother carried a unique genetic mutation, not a disorder, but a variation that affected how her cells processed certain compounds. It's the kind of anomaly that occurs once in millions. She died not because of this mutation, but because of completely unrelated causes. But that mutation? It was fascinating. I've spent the last decade studying it, understanding it, and developing something remarkable. Something that could change lives. And Emma, you carry this mutation too. I had your DNA tested years ago during a routine doctor visit. You probably don't even remember. This research, this potential, this is your inheritance. Not just the building or the equipment, but the knowledge and the possibility of something greater. The world tried to make you invisible, Emma. Your parents, through their neglect. Your sister, through her cruelty. But you carry inside you something extraordinary, something unique. You were never a mistake. You were never lesser. You were the legacy I was proudest of. Build something beautiful with this. Build something true. And most importantly, build something that's entirely yours. The password for all the computer systems is, your chocolate strawberry girl. I love you forever. Grandpa Tom. Emma sat in the darkening laboratory, tears streaming down her face, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like a ghost. She felt real, seen, chosen. She opened the journal and began to read her own story. Part 3. The research. 3 weeks later, Emma had transformed. Not physically, she still wore her thrift store jeans and oversized sweaters, but in the way she moved through the world. She had purpose now, direction. The journal had been revelatory. Her biological mother, Dr. Sarah Chen, had been a biochemist herself. Her father, Marcus Whitman, had been a teacher. Both had died too young, but they'd given her something more precious than time, a genetic gift. The mutation Grandpa Tom had studied affected how her cells processed resveratrol, a compound found in grapes and certain plants. Most people metabolized it normally. Emma's cells transformed it into something else entirely, a compound with extraordinary anti-inflammatory and cellular repair properties. In mice, Grandpa Tom's research showed synthesized versions of this compound had accelerated healing, reduced age-related decline, and shown promise in treating autoimmune disorders. In human cell cultures, the results were even more striking. Her grandfather had been on the verge of something revolutionary. And then he'd gotten sick. Emma spent her days in the lab, reading his notes, replicating his experiments, understanding the work. She spent her nights in the apartment upstairs, which had been furnished simply but comfortably. A bed, a kitchenette, a bathroom with excellent water pressure. Everything she needed. Her parents had called twice. Sophia had texted a string of increasingly hostile messages. Emma ignored them all. She'd contacted Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a researcher her grandfather had mentioned in his notes. To her surprise, Yuki remembered Thomas Whitman fondly and agreed to meet. Your grandfather was brilliant, Yuki said over coffee at a cafe near the lab. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and an easy smile. We collaborated on several papers in the 80s. When he went private, I assumed he'd retired. I had no idea he was still working. He was studying a genetic mutation, Emma said carefully. Related to resveratrol metabolism. Have you heard of anything like that? Yuki's eyebrows rose. That would be extremely rare. May I ask why you're interested? Emma made a decision. I carry the mutation, and I've inherited his research. I'm trying to understand what he was working toward. Over the next hour, Emma showed Yuki the data on her laptop. By the end, Yuki was leaning forward, her coffee forgotten. Emma, if this data is accurate, and I have no reason to doubt your grandfather's methodology, this could be groundbreaking. The compound he synthesized. Do you have samples? The lab has everything. Would you like to see it? That afternoon, standing in the laboratory, Yuki looked at Emma with something like awe. Do you understand what you have here? This isn't just research. This is a complete functional facility. The equipment alone is worth millions. And this work, she gestured at the data on the monitors. This could lead to treatments for dozens of conditions. Arthritis, certain cancers, degenerative diseases. I know, Emma said quietly, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't have a degree. I don't have credentials. I'm just me. Yuki smiled. Thomas clearly believed just you was enough, and for what it's worth, I agree. But you're going to need help. This kind of research requires regulatory approval, clinical trials, funding. It's a long road. Will you help me? I would be honored. Part 4. The Revelation. The lawsuit arrived by courier on a Tuesday morning. Emma stood in the lab, holding the thick envelope, and felt the old fear trying to creep back in. Her family was suing for control of the laboratory, claiming she was unqualified to manage it and that Thomas Whitman had been unduly influenced. "They're bluffing," Yuki said when Emma called her. Martin already told them the will was airtight. "They don't bluff. They win." Emma's voice cracked. "That's what they do. They win, and I disappear." "Not this time," Yuki said firmly. "This time, you have something they don't. The truth. And people who believe in you. Don't you dare give up before we've even begun." Emma hired a lawyer, a sharp young woman named Jennifer Park, who specialized in inheritance law. Jennifer reviewed the case and smiled grimly. "They're desperate," Jennifer said. "This lawsuit is weak, but it's going to be expensive to fight, and that's the point. They're trying to bleed you dry. The operational fund has $800,000, Emma said. "How long will that last?" "Against a family with your parents' resources. Not long enough." That night, Emma sat in her grandfather's chair and cried. Not delicate tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and ancient. She'd been so stupid to hope, so naive to think she could have something of her own. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Just give up. You're embarrassing yourself." Then from her mother. "This is your last chance to do the right thing. Sign over the property and we'll drop the suit. Otherwise, we'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you are." The threat was clear. They'd reveal her adoption publicly, use it to humiliate her, to prove she wasn't really a Whitman at all. Emma looked around the laboratory, at the equipment that hummed with possibility, at the research that could help people, at the legacy her grandfather had trusted her to continue. Then she made a choice. She called Jennifer. "I want to do a press conference." "Emma, I don't think... They're going to reveal I'm adopted anyway. They'll spin it their way, make me look like a fraud. But what if I tell the story first? What if I show people what this research is really about?" Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "That's actually brilliant. But are you sure? Once it's public, you can't take it back." "I'm sure." Part 5. The truth goes public. The press conference was held in the laboratory itself. Yuki helped Emma set up a simple presentation explaining Thomas Whitman's research in layman's terms. Jennifer coached her on how to handle hostile questions. Emma wore a simple blue dress, not armor, but not hiding either. Just herself. The room filled with reporters, bloggers, and curious onlookers. Emma saw her parents and Sophia slip in through the back door, their faces tight with fury. Emma stood at the podium and began. "My name is Emma Whitman Reed, and I'm here to tell you about my grandfather's legacy. But first, I need to tell you about mine." She explained the adoption, the secrecy, the inheritance. She showed them the research, explaining in clear, simple terms what the compound could do. She talked about her grandfather's belief in her, even when no one else did. "My family is suing me for control of this laboratory," she said, her voice steady. "They argue that I'm not qualified, that I'm not really a Whitman. And they're right about one thing. I don't have their name in my blood, but I have something more important. I have my grandfather's trust, his research, and a responsibility to see his work continue." She looked directly at her parents. "They gave my sister $10 million and told me to earn my own. So that's what I'm doing. I'm earning my legacy by honoring the man who saw worth in me when no one else did." Questions erupted. Emma answered them calmly, truthfully. Yes, she'd taken a leave from college due to mental health struggles. Yes, she was working with credentialed researchers. No, she wasn't trying to commercialize the research immediately. First came understanding, then came trials, then came healing. A reporter from a major science publication asked, "What do you say to people who think you're just a rich kid playing scientist?" Emma smiled. "I'd say they're half right. I'm definitely playing. But that's how real science starts, with curiosity, with questions, with wondering, what if? My grandfather played in this laboratory for 30 years. and he created something beautiful. I'm honored to continue his game." The room laughed. Even some of the skeptical reporters smiled. Her mother tried to leave, but reporters swarmed them, asking about the lawsuit, about why they'd kept Emma's adoption secret, about why they were fighting their own daughter. Margaret's no comment sounded like a defeat. Part 6. Building something new. The press conference changed everything. Articles appeared: The Hidden Heiress, The Forgotten Granddaughter's Revenge, The Laboratory of Love. Most were sympathetic, some were critical. All of them talked about the research. Donations started arriving, small amounts from people who'd been adopted themselves, who understood erasure, who wanted to see the underdog win. A pharmaceutical company reached out about potential partnership. A university offered to help with clinical trials. Her parents dropped the lawsuit a week later, issuing a terse statement about respecting Thomas Whitman's wishes. Translation: The public relations disaster wasn't worth it. Sophia sent one final text. "You won. Happy now?" Emma deleted it without responding. This wasn't about winning. It had never been about them at all. 6 months later, Emma stood in the laboratory, now called the Whitman Research Institute, and looked around with quiet satisfaction. They'd brought on 3 additional researchers. Phase 1, trials for the compound, now called Whitman 7, had been approved. Early results were promising. Yuki had become not just a collaborator, but a friend. Jennifer stopped by regularly, usually bringing coffee and updates on the nonprofit status they were pursuing. Emma had enrolled in online classes, working toward finishing her degree, not because she needed it to prove anything, but because she wanted to understand more, to be better, to grow. She'd reached out to her biological mother's family and found cousins who welcomed her with open arms and tearful embraces. They shared stories about Sarah, her humor, her brilliance, her kindness. Emma saw herself in their faces and found belonging she'd never known existed. Her apartment above the lab had become home. Real home, not just a place to exist. One evening, as the sun set through the tall windows, Emma sat at her grandfather's desk, her desk now, and wrote in a journal of her own. "Dear Grandpa Tom, you were right. I wasn't a mistake. I was never invisible. I was just waiting to be seen by the right eyes. You gave me more than a laboratory or research or money. You gave me permission to exist, to matter, to build something beautiful from truth. The family tried to erase me, but you made me indelible. I'm building something here, something that honors you and the biological parents I never knew. Something that might help people. But mostly, I'm building a life that's mine. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for believing that the girl who brought you chocolate strawberries could carry your legacy into the future. I miss you. I love you. And I promise, I won't disappear. Your proud granddaughter, Emma." She closed the journal and looked around the laboratory, at the equipment humming with purpose, at the research that held such promise, at the life she was creating from the ashes of rejection. The world had tried to make Emma Whitman Reed invisible. Her grandfather had made her impossible to ignore. And she was just getting started. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Whitman Research Institute occupied an entire building now, with Emma as its director. Whitman 7 had completed Phase 3 trials with remarkable success. The first patients with severe rheumatoid arthritis were experiencing life-changing results. Emma stood on a stage at a medical conference, presenting their findings to a room full of researchers and physicians. Her degrees hung on her office wall: BS in biology, PhD in biochemistry, earned, not given. In the front row sat Yuki, now the Institute's chief scientific officer, beaming with pride. Jennifer, who'd joined their board of directors, gave her a thumbs up. And in the back, surprisingly, sat Sophia. After the presentation, Sophia approached. She'd cut her hair short, and there was something different in her face. Less certainty, more searching. "That was impressive," Sophia said quietly. Really impressive. Thank you. Emma waited, wary. I'm sorry, Sophia said, for everything. The way I treated you, the things I said. I was awful. Emma studied her sister. The apology seemed genuine, but pain had taught her caution. Why now? Sophia laughed without humor. Therapy. Lots of therapy. And watching you build something real while I've been coasting on family money and accomplishing nothing meaningful. Turns out being the favorite daughter doesn't actually prepare you for life. No, Emma agreed. It doesn't. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what Grandpa Tom saw. And I'm proud of you, even if I have no right to be. Emma felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a loosening. A release of some old weight she hadn't known she was still carrying. Thank you for saying that, Emma said. I'm not ready to be sisters. I don't know if I ever will be. But maybe someday, we could be people who don't hurt each other. Sophia nodded, tears in her eyes. I'd like that. As Sophia walked away, Emma felt a hand on her shoulder. Jennifer smiled at her. You okay? Yeah, Emma said, and meant it. I really am. That evening, Emma returned to the institute. She walked through the labs where her team was working on the next breakthrough, past the library where her grandfather's journals were now archived, into her office where a framed photo sat on her desk. It showed her at 7 years old, perched on Grandpa Tom's lap, both of them laughing at something long forgotten. Below it, in his handwriting, was the quote she'd had engraved. You were never a mistake. You were the legacy I was proudest of. Emma touched the frame gently, then turned to her computer. There was always more work to do, more possibilities to explore, more lives to change. She'd been erased from her family's story, so she'd written her own, and it was beautiful.